You are still single. My wife is a beautiful secretary, a world apart from a less educated and a poor guy like you. After 30 years, I thought I was reuniting with an old classmate, but David was quick to look down on me. I understand his desire to boast since I was the only one among our classmates who couldn't pursue further education after junior high. He also seems eager to spread the word about his wife being beautiful and hard-working. If my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have had to work right after junior high, and I could have attended a better high school than David. In that sense, I was considered a loser back at that time. Then, a woman in a navy blue suit came back with food on a plate. So, she's David's much bragged about beautiful secretary. Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Michelle. Beautiful, isn't she? While she might be considered beautiful, her makeup is a bit heavy. Michelle started trembling when she noticed me. My name is Michael Richardson, and I'm 45 years old. I run a construction company called Richardson, which employs 7,200 people. Hearing this, you might think I've led a privileged and elite life. But in reality, it was anything but privileged. It was a continuous struggle and frustration. First of all, the family I was born and raised in was extremely poor. Soon after I was born, my father disappeared, and my mother was left to raise me on her own. I don't even remember having snacks, and our special treat was the bread crusts my mother would fry in oil occasionally. Without school meals, I would have probably collapsed from hunger on my way home from school. Can you imagine, in this wealthy country of America, a child constantly being hungry? Since we couldn't afford games and toys, I naturally turned to studying whenever I had free time. Maybe as a result, my grades were always top of the class from elementary school. I was well regarded by teachers, and during my time at school, I could forget about the hardships of poverty. Even after entering junior high, my grades remained excellent, and I was respected by other students. I was recognized for my leadership skills and served as class rep and student council president, leading a fulfilling school life. Everything changed at the end of my second year in junior high when it was time to decide on my future path. Both my mother and my homeroom teacher, Mr. Thompson, looked troubled. Despite having the academic ability to easily get into the best high school in the state, my family's poverty meant I couldn't pursue further education. My mother, with tears in her eyes, pleaded with Mr. Thompson. "Isn't there anything we can do? He loves studying and his grades are excellent. It's too cruel to deprive him of the opportunity to study just because he was born into a poor family." Mr. Richardson, the owner of a construction company I know, actively takes in students who are struggling to afford their education. How about working for his company? He can work while getting his high school diploma through correspondence courses. After hearing Mr. Thompson's suggestion, my mother pondered for a while. "Construction, huh? I've heard it's a tough world. It might be impossible to study leisurely. I'm afraid it might be too difficult to continue studying amidst the daily business." It all depends on Michael's effort. It certainly requires perseverance and hard work, but it's not impossible. Mr. Richardson is a man of integrity with a passionate spirit. Why not trust him? Thanks to Mr. Thompson's encouragement, I ended up working at the construction company Richardson. The others all advanced to high school. I was definitively on the losing side at that point. And there was one guy smirking at my life's journey. It was David, who had always been my academic rival since elementary school. David's mother was incredibly passionate about education, spending almost all his time studying except during Christmas holidays. During elementary school, I was also quite interested in playing around, so I wasn't always scoring perfect marks, and David was often ranked first in our grade. However, things started to change in junior high. I still had hopes for the future and began to aspire to go to college and continue my education. Once I started studying seriously, I quickly surpassed David, and throughout junior high, I never relinquished my position as the top student in our grade. We even aimed for the same high school, the one with the highest academic standards in the state. So, you're aiming for the same high school as me, but do you have the money to attend and finish all 3 years? He hit a sore spot, and I was left speechless. This matter has always been buried deep in my heart. There was no point in telling my mother, as it would only make her sad, and mentioning it to other adults would bring nothing more than sympathy. While everyone else took high school life for granted, it was an unattainable future that seemed all too bright for me. The only selfish request I made during this time was, since I won't be progressing to higher education, at least let me take the entrance exams. That year, I achieved the top scores among those who took the exams, which somehow made it easier for me to accept my situation. After graduating from junior high, David went on to further his education, while I started working at Richardson. The construction industry is dominated by men and is a place where loud voices can be heard everywhere. Mr. Richardson, the president of Richardson, personally trained me on site, even though I was still clueless about many things. In the beginning, I stayed in a room at Mr. Richardson's house, where I could sleep and wake up. I managed to secure time for studying at night and worked hard on my assignments with all my might. It was around this time that Mrs. Richardson was pregnant, and they soon welcomed a new member to their family. A lovely girl named Sarah was born. Sarah became very attached to me, and whenever I was away from home for work, she would cry loudly and look for me. "Sarah really likes you, Michael. She won't stop crying even when held by her father, but as soon as you hold her, she smiles." As I gained experience working with other carpenters on site, it became apparent that I was better suited for office work, like calculations and designing, so I started focusing on administrative tasks. I quickly learned how to work with computers and became an invaluable member of the team. Eventually, I graduated from a correspondence high school. For me, this felt like a closure, so I decided against pursuing college. By the time I was in my 30s, I was entrusted with significant responsibilities in managing the company. Having someone in management who knows the field can significantly change how work is done. It became easier to incorporate feedback from the field, and the management could give more detailed instructions. The company's performance soared, the number of employees increased, and the company grew significantly. What was once a medium-sized construction company had now become a major corporation. By that time, Sarah had turned 18 and was growing into a beautiful young woman, which was a joy to witness. Our relationship remained close, and Sarah began to harbor feelings of love for me. Gradually, my feelings evolved from a reliable big brother to someone who would protect Sarah at all costs. One day, Mr. Richardson took me to a high-end restaurant and presented me with a surprising proposal. "Michael, do you have a girlfriend or someone you love?" "No, not really. I enjoy my work." "Then, would you consider marrying Sarah? She insists on marrying you, and I'd rather have her with someone I trust like you than an unknown person." As I stood there bewildered, the sliding door at the back opened and Sarah, dressed in a beautiful dress, came in. Finally grasping the situation, I straightened up and greeted her. Even though we both knew how we felt about each other, I still wanted to make a formal proposal. "Mr. Richardson, please allow me to marry Sarah. I promise to make her happy." Sarah shed tears and whispered, "Thank you." And so, I married Sarah and took the Richardson name. I was prepared for some to be envious, but almost all of the employees accepted us warmly. Perhaps having someone to protect changes a man. Lately, Michael seems to have gained a certain dignity. Maybe it's because of his extensive experience since joining the workforce. It makes us feel safe to follow his lead, they said. I'm happy that Sarah relies on me, and I feel our deep love every day. Thus, 30 years have passed since I entered the workforce, and I've turned 45. At this significant milestone, I became the second president of the company. A significant land development project was set to take place in the heart of our state, and our company, Richardson, was poised to play a crucial role. That evening, a networking event for companies involved in the state's land development was held in a large hall at a hotel. I attended with 2 other employees, heading towards the venue. In the hotel's largest hall, men from the construction industry gathered, creating a buzzing atmosphere of excitement. Not only were employees from companies already involved in the development present to deepen relationships, but many salespeople from companies looking to participate were also in attendance. Furthermore, this networking event welcomed families, and I spotted a few women who appeared to be the wives of construction company presidents. Sarah mentioned she might join us if she finished her household chores in time. The employees I brought with me quickly joined the line for the buffet-style food upon spotting it. For the time being, I had a champagne glass I received at the entrance and leisurely surveyed the surroundings. Then, I locked eyes with a man whose face seemed familiar. His face lit up with a broad smile as he approached me. "Michael, is that you?" "It's me, David. I heard you became a carpenter, but are you involved in this development project too?" "It's been a while. I'm surprised you recognized me. It's been 30 years since we last met." I'm a sales manager now, so remembering faces and names is practically my job. I've always been confident in my memory. You don't look as sunburned as a carpenter should. He probably assumed I was still working on site since I initially started as a carpenter. In 30 years, positions change and some people switch careers, but David's perception of me seems frozen in time, back when he felt he had defeated me at our junior high graduation. It appeared he assumed I was alone since no one was by my side at the moment. "Still by herself, huh? Well, can't be helped. My wife is a beautiful secretary, a far cry from a less educated and a poor guy like you." Just like 30 years ago, upon reuniting, he immediately started looking down on me. I understood his desire to boast, being the only one among our classmates who couldn't further his education after junior high. He also seemed eager to flaunt that his wife was beautiful and successful in her career. If my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have had to start working right after junior high, and I could have attended a better high school than David. In that sense, I was considered a loser back at that time. At that moment, a woman in a navy blue suit came back with food on her plate. "So, she's David's much bragged about beautiful secretary." Her attire was modest, likely due to her role as a secretary, which probably didn't allow her for much flamboyance. "Let me introduce you. This is my wife, Michelle. Beautiful, isn't she?" I glanced at Michelle and smiled. She might be considered beautiful, but I always thought her makeup was a bit heavy. Michelle began to tremble when she noticed me. "Thank you for the other day. It must have been tough for you afterward." "I'm so sorry for what happened last time. Both Bill, the manager, and I have been reflecting deeply, and we were planning to come and apologize within a few days." Hearing Michelle and me converse, David realized we weren't meeting for the first time and gave me a puzzled look. "What do you mean? Michelle works for a trading company. There's no way she'd have any connection with a carpenter like you." "What are you talking about? This gentleman is Mr. Richardson, the president of Richardson Construction, the leading construction company in the state. We supply many products to them, but I made a huge mistake the other day." Michelle was the secretary to the sales manager of one of Richardson's suppliers. David had presented her as if she were his personal secretary, but her role wasn't that high level. Recently, we had arranged a meeting with Bill for direct discussions, but it was left hanging due to a scheduling mistake by Michelle. Michelle apologized profoundly. "I know it's not the best timing, but could you give us another chance, considering my husband? I promise such a disrespectful mistake won't happen again, please." Because of your husband. Well, I know your husband. We're not exactly close, but all right. Please be punctual this time. Thank you so much. Michelle continued to express her gratitude, almost in tears. David was initially dumbfounded but gradually turned pale as he understood the situation. Richardson, that's a major corporation. You're its president. How can someone who has a low level of education become a president at your age? What do you mean how? It's the result of hard work. I've been part of the workforce longer than most, which probably means I've put in more effort. Michelle nodded deeply, impressed. We're well aware of your achievements. You were reputed to be highly capable, but what's more commendable is your respect for the people you work with. David's mood soured even further. Seeing his proud and beautiful wife praising me, whom he looked down upon, must have made him feel belittled. So, you're married too? I guess it's about that time. I got married when I was 23. How long have you and Michelle been married, David? You married quite young. I got married at 32. We were both career-oriented, living a work-centered life. It seems like they are what you'd call a power couple. Having financial stability and a wife who always dresses elegantly, alongside both spouses advancing their careers, would indeed be something to boast about. Michelle looked around. Is Mrs. Richardson not here? I've heard she's beautiful. I've been hoping to meet her. My wife should be arriving soon. I'll introduce you then. Just the mention of my wife being beautiful seemed to sour David's mood. But he probably assumed it was just an exaggeration since she's the wife of a significant client. Then, Sarah arrived briskly. Sorry I'm late. The kids just wouldn't go to sleep. Both David and Michelle were taken aback by Sarah's youthfulness. How old are you, ma'am? You're quite young. It's surprising. She's 30 this year. She was born the year I joined Richardson. To me, it feels like I've watched her grow up and waited until she was old enough. That's like a dream for many men, isn't it? I couldn't help but feel somewhat flattered, scratching my head to hide my embarrassment. I filled Sarah in about David and Michelle. I decided I would marry Michael since I was born. I rushed into it as soon as I turned 18 because I was worried someone else might snatch him away. What a lovely story. Are your children quite grown now? They're still young, 5 and 3. We wanted to spend time just as a couple for a while after getting married, traveling abroad and playing golf, enjoying a prolonged honeymoon. Nodding with a smile at Sarah's innocent words, I could sense that Michelle's heart was in turmoil. It was probably because of Sarah's noticeable pregnancy. Sarah loves elegant simplicity and doesn't seem like she's bogged down by the care of small children. The jewelry, bag, and shoes she's wearing are all top of the line. She only buys limited edition items from well-known brands, and her friends, who also love branded goods, are envious of her collection. Michelle, who seems to have a keen interest in branded goods, appeared to feel down comparing her possessions to Sarah's. I thought marrying David would mean a financially comfortable life, but his spending habits are so extravagant that I still need to work to manage our finances. That's why we ultimately decided against having children. Michelle bit her lip in frustration. Seeing Sarah tenderly caress her belly must be painful if Michelle had to give up having children for her career. Men can be a father even at an advanced age, but it's not the same for women. David, who had been listening to the women's conversation, seemed displeased. There's no point in talking about it now. Besides, you're just as bad with money. Normally, when both spouses work, they contribute equally to the household, but you keep splurging on your bikes, leaving me to foot the bills. So much for your beautiful secretary. You buy all those unnecessary designer bags and clothes. You don't need more than one, but you buy a new one every time a new collection comes out. As the argument between the couple escalated, Sarah excused herself to get some food, leaving the scene. I finished my champagne, pondering the life David had led. He went from the top high school to a prestigious university, landed a prime job in sales, and married a beautiful woman. Without children, he must have more disposable income than most. He probably enjoyed boasting about his life and having others envy him. But now, reuniting with me, he finds the person he looked down upon as living a far happier life. This mindset would only lead to disappointment when comparing himself to someone even more successful. I consider myself happy, but not by comparing my life to David's. Happiness isn't about feeling superior to others. I'm not the wealthiest person in the world, and my job has its share of difficulties. It's absurd to feel down when comparing oneself to the world's wealthiest. Since I'm at this networking event, I'm looking forward to new acquaintances. I started to distance myself from David. Just then, David grabbed my sleeve, stopping me. "Hey, Michael, could we discuss potential business with your company? We've been focusing on expanding in Asia but face some setbacks. We're thinking of shifting our focus to this state's development projects." "I see. You've been looking overseas and missed the boat here. That's a significant oversight. We studied together during our middle school days. Now that we're adults, let's work together again." It was a ludicrous suggestion. I couldn't fathom how he arrived at that conclusion. To this day, I still remember David's scornful words asking, "Do you even have the money to attend high school for 3 years?" With me out of the picture, David must have enjoyed a significant sense of superiority. If I hadn't been there, David would have been the top student. I think there's no point in getting involved with me now, and I'm not exactly overflowing with philanthropy. Frankly, David's presence is nothing but a nuisance. Sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. I don't see our relationship being cordial." David was left speechless, exclaiming, "What?" It seems he never expected to be turned down. "Come on, Michael. Don't say that. Honestly, my sales performance hasn't been great lately, and I might be demoted if it continues. I desperately want to avoid that." As harsh as it might sound, that's a reflection of your abilities. Who would want to start a new transaction with someone facing demotion due to poor performance? Michelle, who had been silent until then, she interjected, "Please, I'm begging you to. Despite what he says, if his performance doesn't improve, he might be fired. If David loses his job, we won't be able to maintain our lifestyle." "What exactly did you do?" Michelle bites her lip in frustration and begins to speak reluctantly. "Well, he had an affair with a client's wife. It led to their divorce, and now we're facing a hefty compensation claim. The company found out, and he's barely hanging on to his job." "Are you okay with this, Michelle? I know your personality from our business dealings. You can't possibly be okay with this, can you?" Michelle silently hung her head and spat out in frustration. "I can't just throw him away like this. Once he's stable enough to manage on his own, I plan to leave him." "What? You are planning to divorce me? I've never heard about this." I listened to their quarrel from a distance. Their relationship seemed irreparable, and I had no intention of obliging them by entering into a business deal. To avoid further agitation, I quietly left their side, reunited with Sarah, and we soon left the event. The following details came directly from Michelle, with whom I remained in contact through work. Various industries were involved in the urban redevelopment of the state, but David's company couldn't secure a foothold anywhere. David's scandal had become too well known, contributing to this failure. Fearing for the company's survival, the executives decided to fire David. Being granted early retirement instead of being laid off was at least a small consolation. The severance pay went mostly towards the compensation demanded by the husband of David's affair partner, so there was almost nothing left for David. Michelle decided to end their marriage, presenting him with divorce papers. While there were happy times living with David, my feelings for him have faded. Fortunately, I have a job and no children. so I plan to focus on taking care of myself from now on. David, who once boasted about his wife's high income, faced the irony of being divorced by someone fully capable of living independently. The divorce settlement halved David's savings, and he had to sell his house. Unwilling to lower his standard of living, David set high expectations for his new job. But few companies offered such senior positions. David's miscalculations weren't limited to his career. Until now, he was able to live quite comfortably with the addition of Michelle's salary to his living expenses. However, even if he was to receive the same salary as before, he would have to cut his standard of living in half. Unable to secure a job, David moved to a cheaper apartment. Eventually, he must have thought that staying in this land was the problem, so he quietly moved to another state. No one, including Michelle, knew what became of him after that. Meanwhile, Michelle thrived. Initially, she deeply regretted not having children, but volunteering, suggested by a friend, brought new meaning to her life. She became a supporter of children in underprivileged countries, hoping she would grow into admirable individuals. She plans to visit Africa next year to meet them. Michelle sold all her designer items, choosing a minimalist lifestyle. I'm grateful to Mr. Richardson for giving me an opportunity that changed my outlook on life. Michelle, who now speaks cheerfully, has simplified her makeup and attire. I've heard that some male colleagues have taken a keen interest in her. It'll be interesting to see how things unfold. 3 months later, Sarah gives birth to a healthy baby girl. This made us parents of 3 children. While the responsibility grows heavier, our children are irreplaceable treasures. Sarah mentions wanting maybe one more, and I wholeheartedly agree. Having grown up in poverty, I'm determined never to let my children endure the same hardships. Maintaining my health and working hard are crucial for that. Lately, I've come to understand what it means to invest dreams in your children. However, I'm cautious not to force them into what I believe is best. Sarah, with her keen eye, will surely keep me in check. The state's redevelopment project is progressing smoothly. Currently, the area lacks sufficient public transportation, so making car travel is essential. Because of their mobility issues, they have to drive a car to get to the hospital. This is a problem across America. But in 5 years, with the introduction of subways and dedicated bus lanes, people will be able to travel to many places without relying on cars. I hear that autonomous buses will also be introduced on a trial basis. The number of hospitals and care facilities is set to increase. Though we're working hard now, we definitely will age. We are working hard now to make it a comfortable city to live in by that time. For our children's future, we're doing all we can now. As I gaze up at a building under construction, I pledge to redouble my efforts.